Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Friday 16th of February 2018, and today I'm going to talk briefly about the question of charity. I'd like to do a series while I'm finishing this book and in the middle of doing some just personal business stuff, having to travel around and so on, just to kind of post some what might be called insights. These are just quite short pieces on things that come to me in my life, and I'm sure I can't be the only person, so I'm just going to sort of post these as blurbs, as it were. So this one is about charity, and if you know my work, you know that I have established on a Quranic basis that the word zakāt cannot be a sort of compulsory tax of any kind. Certainly that's not sustainable from the Qur'an. However, I'm going to leave that question to one side for the moment and just concentrate on the word charity, sadaqah. And clearly we are required as believers to give charity. It's one of the principal constituents of faith, and it's something that I'm sure people listening to this, it's especially at this time when these charities, if you keep up with the so-called news, are being exposed for the rackets that they most assuredly are. Oxfam to begin with. I personally, just as a side note, once tried to give money many years ago when I was, I think, about 17 or 18, and very naive, to one of these big organizations. In fact, it was at Oxfam, and I sent them an amount of money. It wasn't a huge amount, but for me it was quite a lot, with a note saying, please don't send me all of your bump. I don't want to receive it. Please just accept this as a one-off donation, and don't put me on any mailing lists. And for the next 10 years they kept sending me stuff, trying to extract more money out of me. They probably spent more sending me sort of psychological warfare materials than I spent trying to help the people I thought they were supposedly helping. But the Quranic method of giving charity is very clear, and it's very interesting. I'm not going to read lots and lots of verses, because the concept of charity runs through the Quran very clearly. I am going to read a short amount, because the Quranic concept of charity is entirely different to that of Western corporate charity, Oxfam, these types of organizations, and entirely different again to taxation, which has none of the blessings that can be present in charity. So I think what I'm going to do is start with, these are just personal observations before I get into reading stuff, one particular verse. The first thing about giving charity is that you've got to find the person to give it to. Now, I think this is overlooked by people who do give charities, is they fail to understand that it's not all about the recipient. It's as much about you as it is about them, and it takes effort to find the right person to give your charity to. Just because, let's say, you've received an amount of money or something's happened and now it's time to give some charity, it can be tempting to just go and give this money to the first person you come across. If you do, you failed. You actually have to find the right person, and to give the right amount to the right person, and this is the real the killer, in the right way. Now you can give somebody money. If we're talking about money, let's talk about money just to keep it simple. Let's say we're talking about $100, whatever it is. Okay, so $1,000, whatever it is, an amount of money. You can give that amount, but it requires a certain amount of effort to find the right person. But you have to give it in a way which is not demeaning to the person receiving it, and that requires some thought. Now, especially if you're giving your charity to somebody who is, who's in a bad way, the last thing that they have left is their self-respect. And it is possible, and I'm sure we've all seen it done, whereby people give so-called charity in a way which actually robs the recipient of the last thing that he has, which is his own self-respect. And that's not acceptable. and also that's not beneficial to you. I mean, you're still spending the money, let's keep it simple. You're still handing over that amount of money, but you don't receive the benefit for it. And the next part about charity is that it's not just at that time. Let's say there's a chap outside the mosque or the church or the Salvation Army, wherever it is, and you give this individual an amount of money, and you found the right person, and you can see that this is going to benefit them, or you just give it to them because they've asked you, and you give an amount, or it's somebody who hasn't asked you, but you can see that they need it, and those are people that Quranically we should give to as well. So you've established the person, you've got the money, you've managed to give the money to them in the right way, okay? But you're not fully home yet. You see, this is a test for you as well as for them, because the next time you see them, you see this person, you have to maintain that charity, and the way you maintain that charity is by continuing not to allow the fact that you've given them something to affect your relationship with them, or in any way to impact them, for them to feel in any way lessened or reduced or humiliated by the fact that they've been a recipient of charity. So this charity it's like a long burn life. It's not just a one-off thing. There's the finding, the giving, and then the maintaining of this, as it were, absence of demeaning. And you have to maintain this over time, never to allow that fact that you've given them something to affect your bearing or interaction with them. So it's got a long life. This charity, let's say you gave it on the Monday. No, let's say you decided you got the money on the Monday. It took you till Friday to find the right person. You've been carrying it around with you all the time, mentally questioning yourself, is this the person I should be giving it to? Eventually you found the person that you should give it to them. You give it to them in the correct way. You find a way. You have to search to find a way to give. Sometimes you have to ask. In fact, you sometimes need permission to give it. Just because you've got money, and people with money often think that, that they're on the Day of Judgment, this is all going to look very different, okay? But in a way, I mean, I don't mean it exactly this way, but to some extent, you almost need their permission to give it to them. If you could see things from the point of view of Day of Judgment, they're almost doing you a favor, in a way. Okay, you found the person, you found the way to give it to them, you've negotiated the right way to give it to them, you've given it to them. You can either allow people to see it or not allow other people to see it. Both are acceptable Quranically. And then you've got to sustain that. The next time you meet them, you can't treat them in a lesser way because you've given them the money, or that blessing gets lessened, you see. And then you get to the last stage, which is the benefit to them in this life, the benefit to you in this life in ways that you and I and the individual receiving this money don't understand. There are laws. There are almost like the laws of the physical creation. These laws operate. Very few of us understand the dynamics of this. I think certain mystics might have insights into it at particular times, but the commonality of mankind, we don't have this kind of insight. Certainly if we have glimpses, we don't retain it for very long. And then there is the benefit in the life to come. And to many people, I think they lose sight of these stages of charity. And maybe they have some vague concept of this is good in the life to come, but you got to keep hold of all of these points, or you're going to lose something. So that's just a personal insight that I thought was worth sharing. Now, I'd like to compare this with taxation, which we all have to deal with in this world. Now, a taxation is utterly different to charity, however you name that taxation, and in whatever form it comes. Taxation is essentially it is extortion. It's state-sponsored extortion. You don't choose to give it, you don't choose the amount, you don't choose the person to receive it. You don't choose to whom you give it. You don't choose in the way you give it. None of the potential means by which to generate blessings which are extant within the sadaqah dynamic are extant within taxation. Taxation is to charity, I suppose, what cardboard is to health food. It has absolutely every single nutrient sucked out of it, and what you're left with is this sort of this dead byproduct. So you don't choose how to spend it, and also, unlike charity, real charity, where you should give, directly to the recipient, or if you're a man of great means, let's say you're a multi-millionaire, start your own charity, or band together with other people that you know and create a charity where you can manage this money, make sure this money is getting to the people that it should get to. But these huge charities and governments in general, which are basically extortion rackets, well, they're tax farms, aren't they? Working for the banking elite. These things, they kill all the goodness in it and suck out they're still sucking out huge amounts of your actually effectively your time, because money is simply a sort of a representation of your time. However much your time is worth, you've got this to show for it. They're stealing that much of your life, governments, basically, and you're getting nothing in return, actually less than nothing. All of the benefits, all of the blessings that you can find going through the charity model are either non-existent or inverted under taxation. How inverted? Because none of us in our right minds would pay for, to create, bombing Syria, bombing this country, fighting Israel, whoever's wars, the banking ruling elite's wars for it. This is where our tax money goes, creating a welfare state system which rewards mediocrity and lack of responsibility and all of these things. So what happens is they take your money, they extort it from you. You don't choose how to spend it, who to spend it on. They create a parasitic class of bureaucrats who, in a free market, wouldn't be able to certainly, make as much money as they do under this system. And this system of taxation benefits few people, if anybody, in this life, and absolutely nobody in the life to come. So that's just a quick comparison of taxation over actual charity. Now I'm going to read a few verses. This is from Al-Baqarah, from the second surah of my translation of the Qur'an. So it's fairly self-evident, so I'm just going to read through it. It starts at verse 261. The example of those who spend their wealth for the cause of God is like the example of a grain which sprouts 7 ears, in each ear 100 grains, and God increases manifold to whom he wills, and God encompasses, knows. So that's verse 261. This has direct parallels with words attributed to Jesus in the Gospels in the state that which we have them now. But if you think about it, for the cause of God, the example of a grain, one single grain, which sprouts 7 ears. So this one grain sprouts 7 ears, and each ear 100 grains. So that's 700 times. Verse 262. Those who spend their wealth for the cause of God, then follow not what they have spent with condescension or hindrance. They have their reward with their Lord, and they need not fear, nor will they regret. So God does not forget what we give, but they follow not what they have spent with condescension or hindrance. They have their reward with their Lord. To continue, fitting speech and blindness to deficiency is better than charity followed by hindrance. And God is free from need, forbearing. So God doesn't need our charity. We're not doing him a favour of any kind. 264. O you who heed warning, make not your charity vain through condescension and hindrance. like the one who spends his wealth to be seen of men, and believes not in God and the last day. And his example is like the example of a rock, whereon is soil. The rain fell upon it, leaving it bare. They possess nothing of what they earn. And God guides not the people who spurn guidance while claiming virtue. These values for al-kafirin, al-kafirun, and so on, you can see in my translation. The notes there too, which you can download as ever for free from Qur'anite.com. To continue, verse 265. And the example of those who spend their wealth seeking the pleasure of God, and as a confirmation of their souls, is like the example of a garden on high ground. The rain fell upon it, and it yielded double fruit. And if rain fell not upon it, then dew. And God sees what you do. So when we spend of our wealth seeking the pleasure of God, this is the key moment. We have a consciousness that we're doing this for the pleasure of God. And also to confirm ourselves to ourselves. I mean, do we really believe or don't we believe? And every time, when you come to give, you think, okay. It tests you. And also in the Qur'an, how much are we supposed to give? It says, they ask the Prophet, how much should we give? And what he doesn't say there is, what is it supposed to be, 2.5% of everything. You're supposed to give whatever you can, whatever's left, whatever is the surplus. This is the Quranic answer. Whatever you can, whatever is left over, i.e. decide for yourself. And this point of deciding for yourself, the initiative, clause, is so difficult for people. So as one grows in faith, as one grows in one's sincerity, then, and if one's material, position becomes stronger, you can give more. So, choose for yourself. But seeking the pleasure of God. People who give in this way, they're watering a fertile ground, you see. Now, verse 266. Does one among you wish that there be for him a garden of date palms and grapes beneath which rivers flow, he having every sort of fruit therein? And here I perceive ellipsis, which is, well, it's a rhetorical question. Of course we do. We all desire that. And it's a continuation of the garden of the fruit metaphor. And then it cuts to this is what you might call in film terms, fade to black, and then you reopen on the next scene. And old age befell him, and he had offspring without strength, and a cyclone wherein was fire fell upon it, and it was burned up. Thus does God make plain to you the proofs, that you might give thought. Now this is the example of a man who gave, not seeking the pleasure of God. And it continues, 267. O you who heed warning, spend of the good things you earn, and of what we bring forth for you from the earth. And resort not to the bad thereof to spend thereof, when you would not take it for yourselves, save that you should disdain it. And know that God is free from need, praiseworthy. This is charity. When you give your charity, when you see somebody that you're going to help out there in the world, try to observe these things. Why do I say this? Because when we do this, when I do in my charity, when you do in your charity, we're not only helping other people, which we are, and this not only benefits them and us in this life, but it means that in the life to come, we can expect the high rewards. I think, I get a lot of messages from people who say, basically what they're really saying is, what amazing thing can I do with my life? And I don't know the answer to that, other than find your thing and go and do it, which is what I've done, and that's what I call other people to. But I can't make that decision for you, in the same way as I don't know how much charity or what kind of charity you should give. As I'm just working out what kind of charity I should give. But I do know that if we start with these things, if we start with the small things, and we start to understand that we're doing these things for the pleasure of God, then it's like the more, once you start doing this as a habit, God gives you more. And I'm not talking here about money. I'm talking here about, necessarily, although that may be the case, I mean God will give you more insight into what you should be doing. You see, taqwa, like fear of God or consciousness of God, is a habit like any other habit. Like smoking is a habit, like eating fast food or going for a jog is a habit. And these habits, we choose through our habits, pretty much, the garden or the fire. So build your habits, with care. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an-alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.